Good afternoon, I'm Ed Pozzuoli, president at Tripp Scott, and today we're honored to have Dominic Calabro, the president of Florida TaxWatch. Dominic, welcome.
Thank you, Ed.
Dominic, tell our audience a little bit about what Florida TaxWatch is and what they do.
Well, Florida TaxWatch is a 36-year-old nonpartisan, nonprofit government watchdog and research institute for the taxpayers of Florida. So it's not only nonprofit, but it's a scientific research institute. It's basically, as Phil Lewis, just north of here, a former Senate president, helping to form the group with Kenny Plant, very nonpartisan to start with, says it's the eyes and the ears of the taxpayers of Florida. So it's not just looking at how to keep government spending down, but it's looking at how can we get more value from early learning, making our prisons smarter, making our public policy safer, and criminal justice, and all this kind of thing, so we get more value for our state and local government.
So government efficiency.
Government efficiency, bringing some intelligence to government, like military intelligence, jumbo shrimp.
Gotcha.
Government productivity. So it's really trying to help government work better for people.
So in talking about government efficiency, there's a task force that's get ready to kick off. Tell us about the government efficiency task force that statutory and constitutionally mandated.
Well, the voters of Florida in 2006 passed this amendment to the Constitution. Included within it is this government efficiency task force. And this task force is comprised of 15 people, 5 appointed by the governor, 5 by the President, Senate, and 5 by the Speaker of the House. They meet once every 4 years when a governor gets elected or reelected. And it gives an opportunity to kind of clean house for the next governor so the people of Florida get a little bit more of what they're paying for. So this time around, in 2015, TaxWatch has had some independent groups that worked with, and we've helped get billions, tens of billions of dollars implemented through efficiencies through the year. So we said, rather work outside of it, why don't we give the governor, speaker, and president an opportunity to appoint some of these very people who've been doing this for a number of years? So about 8 of the 15 are actually officers, board members of TaxWatch. We've got a great group. My point of bringing it up is we're going to be looking at trying to make some efficiencies even in this incoming 2016 session, though it starts, I think, January 12th.
Right.
So there's some good ideas already there. We're going to try to take them and see if we can market them and get them moving. We've got some great legislators on the panel. We've got some really great leaders. And essentially we want to be able to show where we can make maybe somewhere between $500 million to $1 billion year in and year out. This is how we can make our government work better. So any suggestions of your listeners, your clients, your friends, tell them how in Tallahassee.
Actually, that's right up Florida TaxWatch's, that's what your sweet spot
It's our wheelhouse.
Right.
Wheelhouse.
Now we're sitting here in downtown Fort Lauderdale looking over the water, out in the distance. Tourism in Florida, is really vital. And now you're involved with Visit Florida, and I know that you've worked with our local folks like Nikki Grossman and
She's
folks
doing
like
a great
that.
job. Nikki's doing a really great job.
Tell us a little bit about what your involvement is, Florida TaxWatch's involvement is with Visit Florida.
Well, we actually had TaxWatch established a tourism center many years ago, and it was actually very propitious, very unusual. 2 years later, we had 9/11.
Right.
And so Governor Bush then called me and asked for some help, and I said, Jeb, 2 things you got to do. Number one, we're going to have to spend some money to help the economy recover, to get the airplanes in the air, and basically get our tourists from South America and especially Europe back over here. That was really important. And also, we'll help you with the spending. So we really did that. We helped push him and the Tourism Commission, Nikki and others, and those like her around the state.
International focus, international travelers to Florida.
Absolutely. So we got $20 million. It was matched with 43, and that really helped restart Florida's economy. So we didn't feel the kind of pain that we were expecting. Go forward another 10, 12 years later, we started looking at it. We helped get Visit Florida's budget for tourism promotion up about $20 million over the past 2 years.
Right.
This time we're now looking at international tourism because they spend 2 to 3 times as much money per day. They stay longer, spend more, and many of them begin to settle here.
Right. We've experienced it here, the benefit of that here in Broward and Fort Lauderdale. Let me switch gears. You mentioned the legislative session. It starts early this year, January 12th. What do you think some of the priorities ought to be for the legislature this year?
One, be civil. Seriously, I think the first order of business is to break bread together and just to calm down and begin to really work with each other and look at what are the real needs. Basically, position Florida for the Constitutional Revision Commission that's going to begin to get appointed in 2017 for 2018.
Let me stop you, just so our viewers understand. What is the Constitutional Revision Commission?
It's one of 5 ways that the people of Florida can amend in a very substantial way the entire Constitution of Florida.
It's something that happens every 20
every 20
years?
years?
Yeah.
Every 20 years. It's just to make sure that we're up to date, whether it's campaign finance reform or electoral reform or budget fiscal. There's also a tax and budget reform commission that TaxWatch helped create some years ago. The voters approved it. But that's one. I think also it's going to be education funding. It's going to be public safety. I think you're also going to see funding of hospitals,
Right,
Medicaid,
expansion,
that whole
right,
thing,
right.
expansion is going to be a continued concern. I think we're going to want to introduce the role of principal leadership in our K-12 system. So there's a lot of opportunities to do that.
Explain that last piece, principles, and explain
Well,
that piece.
TaxWatch has a program to recognize and reward the best principals, particularly those that had overcome real substantial odds, working in challenged districts, economically depressed, kids that are really at risk of failing, low income, English as a second language, Title I schools,
Right.
free lunch, free. So what we've done is found with Florida State University and the Department of Education's budget of finances, we'll go and find the 2 elementary principals that made the greatest impact and gains, 2 in middle school, 2 in high school. We do for both public schools, but also public charters. And we've got a couple that actually won. So we find the best of the best, and now we're trying to say, this is leadership. And if you can do it in the toughest schools, why can't you do it elsewhere?
So that's part of, you think the legislature's going to deal with that too?
It's a really a vital point. Without leadership, you have nothing.
So how does somebody get involved with Florida TaxWatch?
Well, that's a great question. www.floridataxwatch.org, 850-222-5052. People think sometimes we're supported by government. We do not get government funds. We're only supported by the private sector. We've got an effort here in Broward County that we were called in by the school board of Broward County. And you have an outstanding superintendent here, and Superintendent Bob Runcie, that after the $800 million bond referendum passed, they want someone like TaxWatch to kind of give an independent review, but to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Make sure that money's spent wisely.
Spent wisely, but also that the processes are in place to ensure that.
Dom, what do you anticipate, after we get through the next session, the Constitution Revision Commission, what do you anticipate for the state over the next 5 or so years?
I really think Florida's kind of in transition. I think part of it is we've got this fractious going on with the House and Senate, and the governor is not really stepping in. So it's a difficult time. There's friction between the governor and particularly the Senate, a little of the governor House, but especially the governor and the Senate. And I don't think it's just the natural tension that you need to make things work. It's gotten to be more than just policy. It's gotten to be very personal. So I think that's really got to ebb and ease for everybody's sake, not just for political aspirations, but for the good of the state of Florida. I think the growth and opportunity for Florida and Florida's best days are ahead, but by working together.
But we got to step back from the abyss on that, right?
We got to step back from the abyss. We got to step back from the name calling. We got to look at real policies. How do we make Florida better, despite who's in charge? If Florida's not a good product to sell, people are not going to come here.
But today it's a well-run state, but it can be better.
I think we're doing great, and we've come so far from just the 2010 period of time, from 07 to 10. It was in a real abyss where people began to say the Sunshine State's over. And we said, no, we can't. And it was a matter of making a decision. So we're doing great. The economy's moving along well. Job creation's good. But there's still areas where we must do better. And I think part of it is the infrastructure, seaports, airports, roads, bridges.
Right.
The K-12, but also university funding and the governance thereof.
All right. And with that, Dominic, I want to thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And I'm certain that our viewers will find what you had to say very interesting. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate you.